So good morning, good afternoon and good evening, everybody, and welcome to our joint session of Empowering Women Public Space Climate Change talks with Caravan Crafts Foundation. Today we're going to be welcoming Mashal Khan, who's going to be sharing what she's been doing and working with Caravan Crafts Foundation, whom we've recently collaborated with a joint cooperation agreement to work on projects together in Pakistan and in South Asia. So this is a sort of informal discussion really on our collaboration and what we're doing. And in this session, we'll continue on this sharing, exchanging and highlighting the aspect of women in public space in South Asia and in the Pakistani context. Together also with our initiative that's been a part of our NGO of BIDS Belgium, and also, as mentioned, with Caravan Crafts Foundation. We continue our research and co-designing initiatives highlighting the challenges and solutions from the global extended network that we have. So, of course, these topics are interlinked and very strongly connected. So when women have equal access to public space, they can, of course, participate in decision-making processes that shape the built environment and ensure that public spaces are safe, equitable, and inclusive. So empowering women and promoting gender equality also positively impacts climate change by enabling them to adapt and mitigate its impacts and play a critical role in shaping and implementing effective climate change policies and solutions. So of course, overall, we know that gender equality is crucial for building a more sustainable and equitable future, and it is closely linked to issues, as mentioned, around public space and climate change. So in this session together, as mentioned, in partnership with Caravan Crafts Foundation, we talked to Mashal Khan, who works with Caravan Crafts Foundation and will give us a rundown of what she's been doing. And I won't go into announcing your bio. I will let you do that, Mashal. So of course, we're going to be now conducting a session of interviews with women in the Caravan Crafts Foundation network and extended community on these topics, which we're so excited about, Mashal. So really looking forward to this discussion with you, where we will be delving deeper into what we're doing, what you're doing, and collectively on our collaboration. So I hand over to you, Mashal. Tell us what you've been doing and who you are.
Thank you, Rosina. We're so excited about this collaboration as well, and unpacking the space of public space and climate change with you. So hi, I'm Mashal. I've been working with Caravan Crafts since 2017. I kind of handle all the strategic communication and learning sharing. And I'm so excited to share my learnings and journey with you all. So yeah, do you want me to share the presentation now, or just do you want to dive a little bit more about my journey?
I think I would love to know a little bit more about your journey, Mashal. Like, how long what have you been doing? What were your studies? What was your background? Where are you, which city you're living in Pakistan, and also when you started this journey with Caravan Crafts Foundation, but also a little bit about why was this topic of working with Caravan Crafts Foundation on empowering women in villages and rural contexts and city contexts, why this was important for you. I know that was a lot of questions, but really it's just kind of, wanting to know a little bit more about you personally.
Yes, so I think my journey has been kind of interesting and kind of unconventional as well. Even my family is kind of surprised, you have all this education, why? Okay, first of all, you come back to Pakistan, but then why are you working for a non-for-profit when you could be easily working anywhere else? And I think for me, working for a social cause is really important. I didn't realize this initially because I think I'll just start with I can completely relate with these women because I, initially being the youngest sibling, have been very sheltered and protected. So I can like relate to these women, like when you kind of, when they join Caravan, it's like all this learning, etc. You kind of, your self-confidence kind of also increases. And also I think I was like very shy and introverted also. So um first of all, I didn't used to speak that much. And then like when a trusted person in your inner circle just kind of tells you how things or society is run, you kind of accept it. But then I think it wasn't until like when I started my master's that I started to question things. And like, because like once you reach a certain levels, like, you know, the level of self-actualization, you kind of started to question things that run. And so like, why, like when you start seeing social injustices, like, okay, they say societies run this way, but this doesn't seem okay to me. So I think it's not until you don't have that agency and education and awareness, you don't start to question things as they are, because then you're just in a very like passive stage of acceptance. So also I think why design is such a, because I think ever since I was young, being an introvert, I was naturally drawn to the realm of like colors and visuals. Not, I've never been a numbers person, so I think that's also a completely relatable thing. But yeah, I think after my bachelor's, which I did in graphic design, I worked for 4 years in the corporate sector. And I kind of missed that agency of when you were in university of having to choose, like, because those are like open briefs. So I always chose in that time climate change and animal rights, because in that way I could kind of escape not talking to people. I'm like, oh, I'll just work in my own bubble and do research and work on carbon emissions and just kind of gather data and then share it with people. But then when you work with other people, so I think started working, I slowly came out of my comfort zone and started talking to people. So then eventually that kind of grew my confidence, like, okay, I can talk to people now, etc. But so eventually after that 4 years of corporate sector, I'm like, no, I still want to do design, but for a social cause. So that what led me to my master's degree in transdisciplinary design. And from there, I was like, okay, a lot of good thinking around social design and design for impact is happening in USA and in Europe, but I wanted to bring that thinking and framework back to Pakistan and kind of localize it over here, because I think most of the people, when they learn and educate, they kind of just want to stay there. But I'm like, but then there's nothing innovative happening back in the hometown. So I'm like, oh, I want to like shift back here. And although I was very much outside of my comfort zone, I came back initially because I had no friends over here. I only had family. So I think I was very
Let me ask you that. Sorry to disturb, but you say back here. So just to give context, you did your studies abroad and you worked abroad, and then you came back to Pakistan. And which city were you from?
So initially I was born in Lahore. I left Lahore, Pakistan when I was 10 years old because my mother had cancer. So for that, we went to USA, but then after that, I was just kind of being a nomad, that I was in USA, then in Dubai. So I kind of like roam around a lot in my early on in my developing years, which I kind of helped in another way, because it kind of gave me a lot of like world views. So I was already growing up, kind of exposed a lot to different cultures, etc. So it kind of made me a lot, I think, helped me create this notion of empathy and non-judgment of like different culture and faiths, etc. So that was good. And I was very quiet. So I just used to be a very like silent observer at that time. So I think all those things kind of helped create the person I am today. So I was there, and I think I didn't work. I only returned to Pakistan for summer vacations to see my grandparents over here, but I didn't live in Pakistan until after my master's degree. So yeah, I think that was like a huge thing. But I think moving around so much in my youth kind of made me much more flexible and adaptable of like living in different cultural frames. So when I moved back, it wasn't such a hard culture shock for me.
Yeah, that I can very much kind of resonate with this kind of East meets West. And and opening up, you know, to different cultures. As you know, I'm Scottish. I'm born in Scotland, but my parents were immigrants to Scotland and to the UK back in the 1950s. And so that was a long time ago. So, and then of course now, as you know, I live in Belgium, here in Brussels. And so you're taking the best of all aspects, aren't you? And then also, I think what resonates with me also is with you saying the journey as a designer. And you realize also the strength that you have as a designer and as a creative in that problem solving, you know, aspect, and being able to use that for social issues is very powerful, I think. And it's never been more powerful than now with what we're seeing also globally within the industry of design, that really it's looking at how do we, you know, design solutions for the challenges and problems that we have. It's becoming more and more apparent now. So very interesting. And sorry, just to go back, when did you then start work with Caravan?
In 2017, so right after I finished my master's degree, I came back in summer and started looking for like development and like non-for-profits and NGOs that were in Pakistan. So I just started scouting out on Google, etc. And I think Caravan was one of the people that I was like organizations I was like searching into. So I think they just called in for me for an interview. So I think their vibes during the interview with like Danish Saab just like really resonated with me. Like I got really good vibes from them. So they didn't even question me, because most of the time that you have an interview period, right? They're like, oh, okay, we'll call you back. Like just right after them, they're like, okay, you're hired. When can you join us? I'm like, what? You don't need to think about it. Like, no. So I think that was really nice. And I think there's very few organizations that I've seen that give you so much agency, etc., to kind of unleash your creativity, like whatever you have in your mind for like social ideas of like exploration, etc. Like very few of them give that complete agency to another person. They always have like, oh no, you have to go through me, etc. So what I really liked about the entire team of Caravan, they're very like, it's like a family. It's like my second home. So it doesn't even feel like work. It just feels like something I'm passionate and committed to. So yeah, it's very like nice when you have like everyone's in sync and you just kind of move forward.
No, it's amazing organization, which I have to say, thanks to a wonderful entrepreneur and agile coach now that I got to know, Ali Sohail. It was thanks to him that, of course, I was given the contacts of Caravan Crafts Foundation and Danish Can, whom I had a conversation with, and we just connected. And indeed, you know, that's where our collaboration started. And then, of course, going on to meet yourself, Mashal, and collaborate has been a real pleasure and a very exciting journey for us. And so, of course, you're mentioning Caravan Crafts Foundation, and it would be great for our audience to really understand more of what Caravan Crafts Foundation is about and what you do there, what your role is, and really the kind of work that you're doing with women, which will nicely lead us into probably sort of the presentation that we're doing around the context of public space in Pakistan and what that means to you and what that means in the environment around you, as well as the cultural contexts. So I'll pass on to you and what you can tell us about Caravan Crafts Foundation.
So Caravan Crafts Foundation is all about empowering rural women. So women who already have some skills of like stitching, etc. So we just further enhance those skills. We say like, okay, you know the art of stitching, but you can use the stitching for a livelihood. You can use this stitching for a business. So it's like we give them entrepreneurship and business trainings, as well as digital literacy trainings of how to use their phone to capture their products and make like an online portfolio. So it's all about enhancing and color palette, etc., that caters to the urban markets. So we thankfully, since I started, have scaled so much that we have Goodwill ambassadors in London who are fashion designers who are collaborating with us to see how we can, and that's in the pipelines of how we can take those crafts and put it on the London walkways, the catwalk, etc. So that's kind of very exciting. We also had like a show in London Biennale in the Pakistan Pavilion, in which the garments that was stitched by artisans were in a helix form, showcasing their dreams. And it was like films and voices of Pakistan were kind of projected on a very like dreamy, psychedelic way. So there's a lot of interesting things that are happening here. So once we work underneath the economic empowerment paradigm, and so these women come and there's like, okay, you're going to be working in the full equal participation with men. And so there's just like another means of entering the household income. And so these women, when they come here, we give them like legal rights, etc. So it's basically touching all the 7 aspects of their life. It's just not the skill-based intellectual side, but also their physical life, their emotional side. So we give them awareness on all these sides so they can lead a life of dignity and integrity. So, yeah.
That's wonderful work, absolutely wonderful work. And of course, in this aspect of empowering women and also linking this to public space, of course, when you're giving women that economic empowerment and they're, going out of their homes and they're having to go to the markets or go to another city, in your experience, how is this journey and what does public space mean to you, and how accessible, inclusive is this to women in the context of Pakistan?
I think first there's like a cultural thing that like when it comes to public space over here, because I think the notion of safety arises when you are in Pakistan, which might not be so much when you're in the West. So even for me, when I'm here, like you kind of have to just inform your parents of like, especially when I'm going to the field, where like, hey, I'm going to be going to Multan, or I'm going to go to Bahawalpur or Rainier Khan or DJ Khan, because they know that the institution I work with is safe, etc. But you never know of like the climate, etc. So just like informing them, and it's the same as for the rural women. Once they have developed those trust aspect, like, okay, the organization is safe and sound. It's just like informing the parents. So it's like the notions of reliability, accountability, and integrity come in. So like you are being honest and transparent, like, okay, I'm going to go here, which actually means I am going to be here. I'm not going to be in some third place, etc. So that's how trust and I think space and navigating public space comes here. But yeah, I think when we talk to our rural women entrepreneurs, they can shed so much more light there. So I don't want to steal their insights as well.
Absolutely. And also, I mean, I can share myself, when I visited there in 2019, it was probably, I've only been really a handful of times, but it was the first time I think I'd gone alone in the city of Lahore for 3 or 4 days. And of course, it was perfectly fine to be walking about, and it was easy to go on the transport and walk about in the bigger city. A complete contrast to the rural areas, as you mentioned, because there it's very much culturally, women shouldn't be going out alone unless they're escorted, or unless there's a group of you knowing where you're going and how long you're going to be, and feeding that back to the families. So it was very, very interesting and very insightful to see the contrasts of the city and the rural as well. So it would be really good that we could see some of the context of public space, Mashal, that I know you kindly have also put in some pictures in a joint presentation that we were doing. I was going to be just sharing probably some of what inspired me to get involved in this project and to do this project. And it was very much related to safety in public space. When I had been attacked in a local park, which is not far from my house, but thankfully for me, I can do martial arts and not every woman can. So I went into Bruce Lee mode. So, but of course, not every woman can do that. So, but it did really make me think, because although you're saying, of course, there's challenges with safety in Pakistan, believe me, there's challenges in every city. Here in Brussels, I think during the pandemic period, certainly there was a few highlighted cases that encouraged petitions that were going around and gathering 10,000 signatures to create more safety in public park. Also in the UK, there was a very high-profile, sad incident of Sarah Everard, a woman who was murdered by a policeman in public space, who had been just traveling. And so there's cases everywhere, very much. But it'd be brilliant to see some of the images that you have, if you could share the screen there. So I'm going to see if I can make you host here, as sadly the co-host function is not working at the moment, but I can make you host and you can share some of the images that you have put together. We have a fantastic one, of course, in the background there. You've got a wonderful one that you've put up. So that's even been a good one to see. So indeed, we put this presentation together just explaining what do we mean about public space.
So yeah, I think this is just like a bird's eye view of a pathway of an alley that looks like when you're walking in Multan from like a house of our fellow rural entrepreneurs. So this just gives one flavor, and this is like pathways that are when you're walking from one home to another, what the streets look like. And then we also use a lot of auto rickshaws in between the villages, because obviously like a van or a car would be very difficult going in these like tight alleyways. So if we don't want to walk so much, we use auto rickshaws to navigate between the space. So yeah, you see, and over here you can also see like a lady on a motorbike with taking her kids to a school. So you see all these different ways, and on the bigger image, you see women walking in a group home or somewhere. So these kind of give you a very sensorial. And then even at night, we just went for, this was like for going for like a little snack in the chart. So just like walking from our lodging place to the thing. So this is what Multan looks at night. So yeah. So these are like all the things that navigate over here. But yeah, I think even at nighttime when I was walking here, I think I felt safe because I was walking with my team. I think I would be a bit more reserved or like a little bit concerned if I was going by myself. And I was like, because like, first of all, I'm not that well versed with Multan. Like it's not so I don't know the streets as such as much as I would know Lahore itself. So I would be comfortable like, hey, I can walk from here to there because I'm well versed with the routes and the streets of Lahore, as opposed to Multan. I just visit this place for field work, etc. And I always find it very beautiful because I think any place you visit that is not your home, you always have this outsider lens and you see things with fresh eyes, which people who are staying there for a longer time wouldn't see. So I think that's always the beauty of being a traveler. So yeah.
And just to give context there, Marshall, in terms of Multan, because you say you know Lahore a lot better. So Multan is population roughly, I'm just looking up as we're speaking, it's around just over sort of 2 million. Would that be right?
I wouldn't know the number, to be honest, but
I can see that it's around 3.721 kilometers square, and the population, according to the census there, yep, it's kind of over 2 million, which is a huge contrast to, of course, Lahore, which is like 11, 12 million, because that's one thing that really resonated with me, because the population of Lahore is like this, is the population of Belgium as a country, So these are the kind of, scales we're thinking of. And when it comes to sort of moving, I've got it as 2.35, it's 2,353,000 in Multan at the moment in terms of the population. And so, you know, you would say in your view, there's a huge contrast between Multan and Lahore. I mean, would you classify Multan, is it a city in your view? Is it a large town?
So I think it would be different because like the place we stay, like so our lodgings are always when we do field work is in the city. And for field work to like when we hold like focus groups or any like workshop or trainings, those are like held in this photo that you see here, which is more in the rural side or semi-rural side. It just depends on how like well off the rural entrepreneur is. So some of this one's like in a semi-urban place, so it's not in the weeds of the field itself. So it just depends on like where you're going and where you're navigating. And so, but yeah, I was just saying because like for me, like I personally just go there for like 2-3 days or a week at longest, or like a 10-day stay at most. So I'm just like, and I'm just like from like our official staying, we just go there, sleep for the night or etc. But in the daytime, we're in the fields, and I'm like fortunate that I always move around with the programs team. So they're kind of my navigating Google Maps place. So they're just like, okay, we're gonna go to this artisan's house now. I'm like, okay, great. So I'm just like letting them lead the place. So they know the city inside out. They're like, okay, this house, now this house. And yeah, so it's very like fluid. So I just like go with them. I don't, if I was by myself over here, I would probably get lost and be on my phone looking at Google Maps, like, okay, how do I go from here to here? But I never have to do that because I'm not by myself navigating the streets, etc. So I think that's the difference.
And just to understand, so that's kind of obviously between the houses, and that's the road. So where would the pedestrians walk, or pedestrians and bikes and cars can go down that together?
So I don't think cars would fit here unless it's a very small car. But mostly this is just for like bikes, footpaths, etc. So this is not the main road. This is more like the homes, as you can see, they're like front, like left and right. So these are like more of like a housing place. The
Right.
main road is like a little bit off the thing. So yeah, over here, and this is just like home communities. So it's like home streets, home streets, home streets. So the main road would be much further. So over here, if someone doesn't want to take their car, etc., that's what the photo that you see at the lower right corner is like the when you're sitting inside the auto rickshaw, do you sit inside the auto rickshaw and like navigate through the space?
Right.
Or so I think our in-house driver Meher Bhai is quite sufficient. So I don't know how he even like has managed to fit in the APV like van through these things. I think that's a skill in itself. Like I don't know how he like navigates and like fits in. So yeah, I think it's a skill and art of his, like how he can fit in an APV van here. So when we have a bigger team or like women that we need to transport like one house to another, that's when we use those methods. But yeah, or most of the time, if they're not too far off, we can just like walk from one home to another. So yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, this is sort of one example, isn't it? But of course, you'll have other examples too, where there's, you know, children playing out in little courtyards and squares, etc.
Yeah, all those photos here. Like I have such a like bank of visual images. So I think for another conversation, if you want to speak more to like children and public space, I have like such a diverse like thing. So I think I'm just like always like creating memories. I love creating memories. I just take photos of like every single moment that catches my eye. So I have like and like keep dumping it on a hard drive too, because I obviously don't have enough space to like save it on my like computer. So yeah, it's a very exciting space, and it's always very emergent and evolving. So yeah.
Absolutely. And this is a photo that's your backdrop then, isn't it? The main one. It's a lovely photo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I mean, we're seeing a group of women walking here. So would they, this is just sort of within the local area.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a
like a very,
road, obviously, as well, though, isn't it? That cars can go down.
yeah, this one's like a bigger path, so your cars can go down, like two cars can go left and right together. So yeah.
Okay. And the one there above right, at the top right, where we see this fabulous picture of the woman on the motorbike, is that something that's quite common, Masha? Like, would you see, women driving bikes, or would she be doing a school run on the bike there, or she's gone shopping with the kids, or is that other women? I can't quite make that out.
From school right now. So you can see like everyone's in their school uniforms. So I think this is like it was around 2 or 3 p.m. So I think they just picked up their kids and they're probably headed home now.
Okay. And that's quite an okay thing. There's nothing, is that quite the norm then? It's
I
okay to.
don't think that's the norm. I think this is like a rarity. I mean, they are women drivers, but I wouldn't say they're like the norm. I think mostly you do see like men on motorcycles, etc. So I think I captured this because like, oh, I'm like, that's a nice capture, and I normally don't see this. So yeah, I was happy to like capture it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, and so these are obviously areas that you've sort of walked in. Is this far from the fields that you would go to work with the women?
No, so I think this is like, so yeah, that's what we're talking about, the semi-urban space. This is that space, the one that you see in the lower right where the tractor is, that's more of the fields. So I think this was en route to the fields. So these were just like my candidate captures from the car itself. So yeah.
And also there, you see, okay, women are walking together. Would you see women walking alone at all during the day, or not really?
Oh, I have seen women walking alone too, but I think that's also depends, like I said, the home, etc. too. Like initially there would be reservations, but once they see like, okay, like she needs to go for work or she needs to go pick up the kids for school, etc. So it's just about the familiarity. I think is also like also the women would try to come back home before dark, etc. too. So even with us, we try not to, even if we're like trainings over, we try to send them back in the daytime, in the daylight. It's very rare that you would find women navigating the space at nighttime. So
Right. Okay. Have you got other images, or what's the next one?
I think the other one was, oh yeah, this is this is in Lahore. I don't think this is like art and thing. So I think this is like Shazil Malik is like us, kind of like a diaspora kid who's just kind of a UK designer doing a lot of good social work. So she's also like questioning the gender norm and women's empowerment, but through art and creativity, and then creating public messaging of like, this is like a wall of tolerance, etc. So yeah, so she does a lot of, this is like the work that she created during health and COVID times. So yeah. So I find her artwork kind of inspiring, and then she does it like artwork, then she displays it in public space as well. So this is like a long art march. So yeah.
That's wonderful. And what city is some of this public art?
This is all in Lahore.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, so this is all in Lahore. Do you want to like segue to you now?
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I just wanted to ask, how is that art perceived? Do you know that Shezi Malik works on?
Well, I think I would need to ask my I think more of the older generation, because I know people who are my age, we kind of like are inspired by her, and I think the youth in your universities, etc., always look up to her as well. So I see a lot of her inspiration being modeled down when like, because Pawan works a lot with bridging the gap between urban and rural. So we do a lot of workshops and creative expression exchange between youth and of the rural and urban places. I know LUMS and VNU and NC kind of always like have like seen her work being displayed in their portfolios as inspiration, etc. But yeah, I think I need to ask the older generation of what they think. I had never asked them this because it's always something that we, the youth, and like my friends, etc., over here, we talk about and say like we find her work inspirational, and her, like, as you can see, her blurbs and the like below on Instagram, very like her, even her language is very like thought-provoking and reflective. So we kind of appreciate that because like her visuals and accompanying language is kind of inspirational. But yeah, I think I'm sure each one has like, because it's like a generational gap, some other, like, I don't know what the elders would think about this.
No, it's fabulous. I have to definitely look her up and follow her, but it's wonderful, and it's really great to know that you know, she's able to express this in public space. You know, that there's no sort of real backlash to it, and that it's able to still stay there on the walls. From the images that you had shown, even the previous slide, you know, it seems like there's quite a few places where she has this art, which is wonderful. And again, there's that wonderful image of a woman on a motorbike.
Yeah.
Managed to capture live. So that's super. But yeah, we can follow on. I think I had just shared a couple of slides again. It was just about public space and, you know, saying where I live in Brussels, it's the northeast side of Brussels and one of the smallest municipalities. I think we've got a population in Brussels of just over kind of over 1 million, I think, or maybe 1.2 million. And I'm in a north side municipality. We have 19 municipalities. Our one is one of the smallest with just 23,000. So nowhere near the scale of what we have in Pakistan, but and we live near this kind of symbolic Art Deco basilica church, which is one of the largest Art Deco churches in the world, actually. So, and this park has probably been my symbol of home in all the years that I've been here, which has been around 21 years, whether it was walking through, going to work on the public transport, or whether it was taking my kids for a walk. We can move to the next slide, but also we've seen a lot of activity in this park over the years, where we have festivals, we have gatherings, we had a sort of summer cafe bar that the public had crowdfunded and helped with the local Flemish government that helped to operate this. And it really encouraged play and gathering of people. Here we've seen this kind of mobile library that they had placed, and then also very much having animators and people playing in the park. And it really brought the community together. And we've seen the difference of when we had activities in the park and when you don't. It's still a park, mashallah, that I wouldn't walk through at night alone by any means. And during the day or even early evening, it would feel safe if there was activities, but if there's nothing going on, I certainly wouldn't at night time walk through it. But during the day, it's absolutely fine. We create our own social paths, of course, when we're walking from A to Z. You can move on. I can't recall what I had as the next slide, but it's been certainly very lively, the park, when we have the rare occasion of the sun coming out here in Brussels. Also, you know, when it comes to public space and activities, I've been sort of involved with collaborations with other organisations here that were doing different festivals. This was in the city of Brussels, in the old sort of fish market area. And there was a wonderful festival called the Hospitality Festival, which brought together all different nationalities of people. I don't know if you know, Mashal, but Brussels is apparently next to Dubai, one of the most diverse cities in the world. Obviously, we have our institutions of the European Commission and NATO, etc. So we have a lot of different nationalities. And in this one, again, I wanted to bring this fusion of culture together. So we had wonderful Shreya, who's an Indian dancer with, it's a kind of blurred image there in the top right, and Sophia, who was a flamenco dancer. So Shreya was doing traditional Indian Kathak dance with the flamenco combined. It was really quite spectacular. And then obviously Belgium being Belgium, we have a big chocolate industry. So we had this opera and chocolate with Diana singing wonderful opera in the public space, which was a great opportunity just to bring different people together, think about social cohesion, and just a celebration of culture in public space. We can move to the next slide. And so for me, it was also important to have that sort of creativity. Another one coming back here to the north side in my own municipality, I've had the pleasure to be on this commission of the local municipality in feminising our street names as part of a strategy that the municipality has. So one of the tunnels was one of the main tunnels here, the main tunnel actually, was renamed after a woman, Annie Cordy. And so this opened up last year, and we also had some public art in the tunnel. So it's been quite a strategy to have more prominence given to women in public space. So whether that's physically of women being in public space, or whether that's actually renaming certain streets and squares, because of course, you know, our cities have been designed by men for men. And so it's good to have actions like this that the region and the city are definitely moving towards. So this was wonderful. It was great to see a real wonderful support by the community, and lots of people came to this, including the ministers, to open this up. So we can move on to the next stage, the next slide. So yeah, so just, I guess, both of us would feel strongly about this and some of the aspects that we should consider, Mashal. So I had just, you know, together with you, we sort of put this list together and the images together to say what are the things that we need to consider. And we have a long way to go because, as I said, all cities have this challenge, you know, of having the, you know, really this inclusivity aspect. And also, I think during the pandemic, we also seen here this accessibility to public space when some spaces were closed when it comes to when it came to the pandemic, but also this accessibility and the fact that not everyone has the luxury to have a garden. Not everyone lives close to a park and a green space. And we know also, of course, there's, you know, a health impact there. I think it's sort of neuroscientifically proven about being around green space and nature makes you feel better, and it's good for our mental health and our well-being. But of course, as women, we also know there's a big aspect to sort of safety and security. What do you think, Mashal? What sticks out to you from this list?
Yeah, completely agree. I think this is our wish list of what we want to see happening up in like in our society much more. And it's like you said, we do have a long way to go, but I think right now, I think the strengths in Pakistan right now is like a strong community cohesion. So it's like there's a lot of good, like positive, like, so each woman would be there for themselves. Like I've seen this in exhibitions, etc. If someone is not feeling well, etc., they're like, okay, just watch my stall, etc., and I'll go get you something, some water or something. So like, I think the community connection, and I think that strong sense of kinship within the community creates a sense of safety within that safe. So that kind of creates a safe space, like you kind of feel safe sharing your thoughts, etc. So I think that's not a tangible space, but that's like an intangible space that I think that is working when you have these women coming together and kind of builds the solidarity in that sense. But yeah, I think being more inclusive and having these spaces more accessible to women, especially, like, so I think that'll be something that we need to work towards. And I think we could slowly but surely get there.
Yeah, creating these kind of safe spaces where also it's for that exchange and sharing together. I think that's certainly also something that resonates with here, with creating more of these kind of spaces where women can share and exchange together, whether that be private spaces or public spaces, or a bit of the private mixed with public. But certainly, I think we need more visibility of women in public space and creating that safety for them. And that's been a huge thing here because, as I mentioned, you know, we still have a long way to go with regarding you know, it's more than just putting in lights in a park, you know, it's so much more than that. And I think you're right that creating that solidarity, and also I think having the voices of the unheard women heard and listening, what are their concerns is a big thing as well, I think, of having, you know, certainly participatory aspects that we're working on, of having, using sort of participatory design. And we're seeing it also local government here with the municipalities. They're attempting to do co-design sessions now with citizens and with women together to understand, okay, what are the concerns? How can we work together on this? So it's a good start. And I think it very much links to that democracy. We've got democratic there as well, of, you know, our public spaces are also spaces that we have to not just express our creativity, as we've seen in some of your slides, but also to bring people together on a common cause that want to come together, and maybe not quite always protesting, but it's at least spaces to come together. I don't know if we had anything after that at all, Michelle. You want to close up on this wonderful image?
Yeah, so I think it's just like what we've been talking about, like women everywhere across the world need more safe, inclusive, sustainable public spaces. So I think just the notion of like we need to work more towards this thing. And I think about safety and public space also comes with transportation. So I think this is the whole about like creating more gender sensitivity, not just for the women, but also like for the entire community, so they feel safe navigating those spaces when they're not in a group, but alone as well. Yeah.
Yep. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Do you want me to jump on sharing the other things, or do you want to save that for like another conversation?
I think we could run through them. I think it's great to share these slides. I think it's been super to go through this, and we can go through the other slides as well, Michelle, that you have.
I can do like a snapshot share of it. We can do a deep dive later on if you feel like it's necessary for another conversation. But for right now, what I can do is just do like a quick snapshot of what Carvaan is doing.
Absolutely.
Right. So I think what Carvaan is doing right now, other than our vocational skills training and business training, is that around whether it's like public space or other topics of gender sensitivity, etc., what we've come to learn is that women relate more when you speak through activities. So rather than having like just going up and up front, like, oh, so what are your thoughts about domestic violence? So like women would just like freeze up and don't know how to talk about it, because, or even like public space, because I think the notion is of public space, you have to like use terminology like, oh, coming and going from home, rather than, because the notion of public space is a word that's unfamiliar for them. So what we do is try to like use these SDGs, and we like out of the 16 that are identified with the United Nations, we highlighted 8, and we kind of connect them with the days that are with that United Nations has highlighted, and we kind of create activities that are more play-based with these women. So it's like the micro, small, and medium enterprises day. We just kind of did like, oh, if you had a 1 rupee, like you had to kickstart something, how would you start your own business? So they kind of just ideate together. So it's like this one's more around business, and we had like different days around different topics, etc. So it's like each for equal, talking about things. So we kind of do more like gratitude messages, etc. So there's one that I think is more pertinent to us around this one, about public space and mapping out human activities. So I think this one was in Gujranwala. Just so I printed out this giant paper of the map of the city of that area where our training center is. So you can see, and gave them this like camera so they can walk in the city, capture pictures, and then paste it on the board and see like what paths do they take from home to the training center to other places, like where are the human nodals of human activity happening, where are they occupying spaces. So I think when we do it through play, when you do it through conversation, and you see it, you're not just like, it's not an interview per se, but it's much more as a collective community action. The guards are more down, and the women are more, or like they see it, they're enjoying themselves, they're talking about it. So they're like learning about public space, how they're navigating through public space, but then they're not also saying like, oh, I'm in a class, I'm learning a lesson or something. So they kind of enjoy it. It's like a play-based activity as well, and have a discussion around public space. So this is how we do kind of activities around this. I talk about difficult subjects or subjects that women might not be familiar with, but this is how they kind of gain a little bit of self-confidence and notion about like talking about topics that are kind of they're unfamiliar with or kind of outside their normal range of, oh, should I be talking about gender or like equal gender rights or human rights? So it's like when we do it through activities, it's easier to. So this was around like family planning. So they were just saying like, oh, if there was a mad doctor out in the society, how would you control? So then giving them like papers that are like, oh, I would just come up with like magic pills that could control the virus, etc. So we do it through play-based activities. So you can talk about these things, like kind of stretch your imagination, as well as engage the topic in a much more friendly manner, rather than just be like, oh, this is a taboo topic, I shouldn't be talking about it. Only men with policymakers should talk about the subject. So we kind of do it in this manner of just kind of giving them agency of how they would think about it, how would they act upon it. So yeah.
This is what we want to hear more of. I think this is amazing work.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we definitely would love to, I think, have another session where we really delve deeper into this, because this is a quick snapshot that you gave, but I love that participatory one that you were doing with on public space, and that, you know, must have been really quite interesting, because as you said, it's not a phrase that probably the women are common with in terms of when you say public space. So in the role-playing aspect, I couldn't agree with you more. I think role-playing is fantastic. And I think as creatives also, we want to bring that aspect of play. And I imagine, like you said, you get women to really open up a lot more when they're doing this role-playing together. And so how was that perceived actually? How did that session go when women were talking about their roots? And were they open enough to talk about, for example, oh, okay, that's not a safe route, I would have I got attacked in that route, or that's not, you know, that, or that is a safe route? Were they delving in as deep as that, or was that something that you can kind of slowly build up to?
Yeah, this was just like the first one, so we didn't jump right into that one. So yeah, so as you can see with the bean one, I kind of always start with the much more like quick, short and sweet icebreakers, and then dive into this one. But I think this is such a rich topic. So with you, I think we have much more space. I think we just did more like familiarity of how they're more occupying space. And like when you were talking about feminizing the space, is more like unpacking with them, or like how they're taking agency and kind of understanding like how they're navigating the space for themselves, whether they're traveling by foot or they're going with their family member or brother on a motorbike, on an auto rickshaw, where do they live, etc. So I think they were just like unpacking that. But I think the notion of safety and how, I think those things are much more topic that we could unpack, because I think these are also very quick and short ones. So these are like 2-3 hours or 4 hours max activities. They're not very intensive. So, and we kind of just do more than, so this one was just the first one and this one, but yeah, I think, and also just walking in the city with the camera itself was like an interesting one. So I think we had like so much that like just walking with them within the city, like the thing. So that was like a mini, like walking, like taking action of like thing of just like a group of women just like walking the city with a camera, etc. So making space by through walking, etc. So I think there's like so many things happening that there's a lot of layers for further unpacking as well. So maybe with you, we can do more unpacking remotely.
Absolutely, absolutely, with pleasure. And that's, of course, the purpose of our collaboration, is to introduce this notion of public space and to delve deeper together, hence the collaboration of really seeing what more we can do together. And this will also follow on very well into those conversations with some of the women where we do delve deeper and ask about their experiences, obviously in a sensitive way, just to know what their experience is in public space, which of course we'll be starting. So no, this is a super glimpse into everything that we'll be doing further. So that's wonderful, Masha. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, but I think one of the things that's interesting that wasn't on the map, they were like, oh, we have this like bamboo retreat that they figured out because they're like navigating the space by walking. They're like, this is not on the map, but this is our escape to go to like recreational activities. So like they showed it to me and it was like really nice. Like kids were like, so they had like women, some of them bring their children with them to the training center. So some kids were like hanging from the bamboo tree. That was like such a sweet moment. So I'm like, yeah, I'm like, and they're like, yeah, and this is not on the maps. I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. Like things that are important to these women that are not even like visible on the map. So then it's like, so they wrote it on the sticky note and they took a photograph of it. So I think that's like a nice insight that like, oh, some things that are like hidden treasures that are not even on the map that are important to them. So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, it's wonderful, and we're really excited, Michelle, to be working together, and really looking forward to seeing what amazing things we can do together on this. And I just have to say a big thank you for this collaboration and for us to be able to do this together, and for this conversation and getting to know, and the audience getting to know you a little better and what Caravan Crafts Foundation does. And you know, we plan to share this also on Empowering Women Public Space Climate Change on the website, and of course on the social media, and also obviously it will be shared obviously with you also, because it's a co-production from both of us.
You know, we are super excited too, and unpacking the space of public space and climate change with you. I think you are bringing in a fresh perspective and fresh set of eyes on this. So we're excited to learn from you as well.
Thanks, Michelle. Well, you take care, and we end the session. So we join for the next one, and we'll let everybody know when the next session will be.
Yeah, excited. Talk soon.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.